like to learn how a woman went from being in the dumps to living the life of her dreams? Well, we're going to find out today, thanks to my guest, Darlene Ondi, coming to us all the way from Calgary, Canada. And Darlene is a woman embodying her passion, and she's also a representative for Braveheart Women. Darlene, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, Krizia. It's my absolute pleasure. I'm pleased to be here.
I'm so happy to have you, and I'm really excited to share your story because you have a really powerful story, and I definitely think that more people, especially more women, need to hear sort of how your life has evolved, and really evolved is the right word over the last a few years. So first off, I just sort of talked earlier, every time I start a show, I always start with a question. And my initial question was, finding out how a woman went from being in the dumps. And sometimes we talk, I'm in the dumps, I'm not feeling well, I'm a little bit depressed. But in your case, you were actually physically in the dumps. And if anybody has ever had to visit the city dumps in any city, they know that the smell is something that you will never, ever, ever forget for the rest of your life. So I needed to know, how did you end up working at the dumps and in Calgary, and how was it?
Well, yes, I have to say, Krizia, that is absolutely an experience that I would not wish upon anyone, especially our female sisters, because, actually, I worked at the dumps anywhere between 40 below, which is not a treat by any means.
And that's Celsius. 40 below Celsius.
Yes, and then, of course, 30 plus. And so you get the full range of what I'm talking about. And when we talked earlier and you relayed your story about you yourself having to take a visit, I mean, we laughed, but still the reality of the whole situation is that's certainly not a place where anyone wants to be. And I guess a bit about my story is that I considered myself quite a successful independent contractor with a financial firm, and was constructively dismissed from that company after about 14 and a half years. Was very used to my freedom. I was, bringing in some very excellent income. And I went into a very, very deep depression because what had happened was my work became who I was. And so it took me about 6 months really to have the ability to even talk to anybody without breaking down and crying. And so I finally had to, step it up. I have a statement that I use. It's, put on your big girl panties. Woo! And I had to get back to work. So there was actually a bit of a recession in Calgary at the time. So I have hung out with the boys typically for many years of my life. And so I knew a gentleman that basically put me, first of all, in front of, I was a welder's helper up in Fort McMurray. And I actually worked on 46-inch pipe, and that's a whole other story in itself, but that was a very mundane job. I mean, I was up at 5:30 in the morning at a safety meeting at 6:30 and working in exceptional heat till about 5:30. And it's absolutely not a place for women.
That's 12 hours.
Yes, so they need to pick you up in a truck to actually take you to a porta potty that's in the middle of nowhere. So, I mean, again, that's a whole other story. And then I got laid off from there. They had a whole bunch of layoffs in Fort McMurray, and then that took me to another gentleman who he was actually a plumber in Airdrie, Alberta, and his gentleman that was working with him was going in for apprentice, so he went off to school for about 2 months. So he said he needed someone, and I had actually done some construction work for a girlfriend of mine who has a very quite well-known salon here in Calgary. Mm-hmm. And she says, I have a friend of mine that would be very happy to assist you. And so then I did plumbing for a while, putting in gas line pipe and, water line, and you name it, I did it. I was the gopher. And so then from that, his gentleman came back. So then I got a call from a company out of BC. And
sorry, can you repeat again? BC, British Columbia?
British Columbia,
okay.
British Columbia, Canada.